Today, we have the pleasure of Rajeev Madhavan's company here, founder and general partner at Clear Ventures. Rajeev has a long and successful career as an entrepreneur before that, so he's a very hands-on guy that I've known for a very long time. I actually did a lot of work in the electronic design automation world, which was Rajiv's old world. Rajiv founded a company called Magma Design Automation, which was a very courageous thing to do at the time because there were EDA at the time was an oligopoly of Cadence and Synopsys, with Mentor being the third player, and Magma came in as a fourth player. So anyway, Rajiv has deep experience, and I invited him back to the program here to brainstorm about today's contemporary cutting edge topic, which is artificial intelligence. As you heard, for those of you who were here last week, there's a lot of confusion in the market, including among the VCs. So, so this is why we started this new discussion series to get a little bit of clarity on what exactly is happening in terms of AI investments, and how do we parse the trends, how our investors think about things, and how should entrepreneurs think about things. Rajiv, welcome to the show. It's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me here, Srimala.
So Rajiv, what is your investment thesis in the age of AI? How are you looking at the world, and how are you thinking about investments in this world?
So I'm going to kind of divide it into broadly 2 or 3 categories. But before I do that, I just wanted to kind of give a line of what Clear Ventures is, because it's how much money we have will determine what we invest in, right? We can only put things in what we can afford. You can't just act like a $10 billion venture fund when you're a 330 million venture fund, right? So we basically are a 330 million venture fund here in Silicon Valley. We look at seed and Series A. The very early stage, we don't need the first customers. We most likely would have funded a company where there's no PowerPoint even of what they're going to be doing. It's like sitting down with them. There's a rough idea of what it is, and that's where we invested. Obviously, AI investment started a lot earlier, before this generative AI boom, where everybody can become an AI expert. And suddenly that's what's happened in the market. But the AI boom we divided into simply 3 things, right? One is the high cost chips and semiconductors that are designed using AI. Designed using AI for AI in many cases, sometimes just for AI. You mentioned my background as being in semiconductors. We met with every one of them because 99% of them were my customers, right? They were my customers' friends from my past life. I chose not to invest in that because my biggest customer was NVIDIA, and I don't think taking on NVIDIA on inferencing now, which is what the latest trend is from chip design, it's that easy given the software framework that needs to happen. But the amount of money that's going into that space because of all the semiconductor restrictions to China, to Middle East, etc. There's lots of money pouring in from Middle East funds. Chinese funds are trying to get in. So it's a large set of investment swath of money that is going into that area. I tend to believe that in 2026, that there'll be maybe 1 or 2 which gets aggregated into one of the cloud suppliers. But it's not going to be the best of exits in that space, given the large number of players that have come in and the large amount of money that's gone into that space. The second layer on top of that is what I call the application builder layer, right? Which is the basic core AI ops, ML ops, it goes by various names by various VCs. This is the layers where you have, including the players like OpenAI providing generic large models. You have Hugging Face, a place to repository of models. You have various companies in that space. Again, very cost costly space because you're ending up paying the fees to NVIDIA in that space. If you're a company in that space, you end up spending a ton of money on training, on model building, on making sure that everything is correct. And that means, you're taking hundreds, if not billions of dollars and giving hundreds, if not billions of dollars to the NVIDIAs of the world. So that's the second space. We have kind of some amount of exposure in that, but not a lot because we tend to think that this will get centralized in the top cloud providers, database providers, etc. So everybody in that space who are existing cloud and database providers will end up providing their own large model facilities and models and things of that nature. However, there will be one or two large companies that will succeed in that space, and I'm pretty confident of that. But it's a very costly endeavor. The third space is what I call vertical application, which is one layer on top of that, vertical application building. And here we have a lot of companies, a significant amount of companies that we have picked and invested in. So the idea there is if you have expertise in one particular area. So for example, we have a company called, evidently I'm just picking on one of them, I can pick on many of the companies in our list. This is in healthcare, company where essentially, if you're a physician today, if let's hope none of us have to go into an emergency room, hospital in Stanford, etc. But if you're going in, a physician there has to make a decision on you on a couple of symptoms and about 5 minutes to read your entire database of Epic or Cerner or whatever databases the hospital is using. That inherently leads to physicians having a trouble to actually diagnose what it is, right? So we provide a tool. This was formed by somebody who's the architect of Siri, and we can provide a tool that helps physicians. But so it's both from an expertise, and there's an MD in that group. It's who was an emergency room physician. So there's a lot of experience within that team to do how to make sure that hospitals and physicians are well taken care of. But we quickly realized that the money in the hospitals, while every hospital will say physician burnout is an issue and we should take care of it, when it comes down to it, they won't pay for anything except making more money via insurance, making their operations better, etc. So we actually think of a physician being able to write those documents. So we expanded the tool to be able to do those services. And it's now deployed in a number of hospitals. Just in the first week, it saves $160K of cost for a particular hospital. So it's a university hospital that just deployed it a week ago. So we tend to think of it as, sort of an application led and developed by physicians with the expertise in the AI team sitting alongside it and building it, right? We have similar things in taxes. We have similar things in, a company called Cognitos in RPA, robotic process automation. So we have about 8 companies in that light of vertical technology where there's somebody who has been in that field. So for example, in this tax company it's somebody who was at Ernst & Young's VP of engineering and has served the tax business, franchise business for a long, long time. So he understands the taxes and would you change that in terms of having a vertical application that helps small, medium businesses fill their taxes. So we have about 8 to 10 companies that we have invested in that over the last 4 years. And that third layer is what we are focused on because we tend to think that it's a question of expertise of the person that comes in and the amount of the custom data that you can put and on top of it, generate models or a combination of generic models with private LLMs, you can create a much richer flow. So it's a combination of, you can put together a feedback loop, a RAG loop with essentially your own knowledge basis. If you know the space and can collect the data. So it is a space where we are very, very keen in investing in. I hope that kind of gives you
Yes.
our market in three ways that the way we look at it.
Absolutely. So let me synthesize a little bit for those of you who are listening, and you've heard some of this at these conversations. We've had a few of these already. The semiconductor layer is very, very expensive to do startups in. There are quite a bit of activity going on there, but for our audience, where our philosophy is more lean startup, bootstrap first, raise later kind of activities, this is not really possible to do. That's capital intensive. We work in the capital efficient domain. Secondly, the layer above that is kind of the platform layer where it's also very expensive to build these platforms, and the thesis for most of us, we kind of agree on this thesis that it's the large cloud providers who are providing. Before they were providing platform as a service, cloud platform as a service. Now they're providing AI cloud platform as a service, and that's your Azure, and OpenAI is providing that too. Google, IBM, AWS, they're all providing cloud platform as a service, and there are some startups in that field as well. So you are seeing players like Cohere, you're seeing players like Anthropic, etc. And then comes the layer, the application layer, which is where the vertical AI activity is. And this is really the richest, most highly active area of entrepreneurship today. And most of it germinates out of people's intense domain knowledge. So you do need intense domain knowledge to be able to build the value on top of the lower layers where the horizontal AI exists, and then build really contextual solutions. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, Rajeev, in this context. The companies that you're investing in, what is the distribution, or what is your analysis in generative AI companies, or where the empowering technology is generative AI versus just regular AI, machine learning, deep learning, etc.?
So most likely, Sriman, I mean, generative AI is great in things like writing reports and assessing data. But if you're very specific data, for example, this RPA company on a very specific tool, etc., you really need to build your own private LLM in conjunction with a tool. So, for example, if I need to find address of somebody, if I'm an insurance company using some software like this, I can use the LLM technologies, whatever the models you're mentioning, whether it's OpenAI or whether it is Google Gemini. It really doesn't matter, but you are using those for certain functionality. But the knowledge base and the combination of that you're building, you probably will end up having to build your own custom models, right? So many companies even basically started before the generative AI trend, 2.5 years ago, to 3 years ago, when the papers first started taking hold. So and many of those companies had built their own knowledge graph, but they use the LLMs for various auxiliary functionality. To think that you could entirely build your application on that may be possible only for things like marketplaces and open generic database, data availability solutions. If you are a founder and you're an enterprise, you're selling to an enterprise customer, which is like almost 100% of our customer base, issues like hallucinations, issues like, if the model answers a question it should not have answered, like it has, let's say, salary information for all the company, and somebody else in the organization asks, well, how much is XYZ making in terms of salary? And if the model answers, that's not allowed. So there is authenticity of data, authorization that needs to happen. There is, hallucination issues. There is, issues of what answers are given, which is correct for the corporations or the enterprises policies. So there's a lot of issues that actually has had an impact in the speed with which many of the companies can deliver their tools. So, for example, our company, this company called Cognitos, which is doing RPA, the biggest delta they can do is what they call trusted AI. So they have an AI, language-based interpreter, which is actually sitting right in the middle of the solution and allowing people to create in English, communicate in English, and exceptions in English. But it's also a filtration layer that ensures that bad things don't happen because enterprises cannot tolerate that.
Right.
So trusted AI is needed, not just large models or the old school knowledge graph based AI models.
Well, the other side of that coin is that you don't really need the large models for a lot of the vertical AI solutions, right? What you really need is a domain-specific small model that does have the full understanding of the vocabulary of that domain and can do learning and algorithms and workflows within that domain, but doesn't necessarily need the whole world's language capability.
Yeah, this is where the open source Llama 3 kind of models will clearly make it easy to build that specialized small model for a particular company. They can use that technology to build it. But for generic things like I want to find addresses or some things in the application, or I want to generate a report out of this, I may still use some aspects of large models, very large models, because they have coverage, and that's just writing a good English report, for example, and this one is doing better than that. So you're kind of going to have to go with application based, and within the application, which area is what model. You really don't have to spend everything into one model and build into that, because that actually is going to be a tougher problem for you, because every time you update, you're updating a mother of all models, whereas you really want a lot more smaller models that you can use in efficiently developing your platform.
So also, Rajiv, there's another factor to consider. This company that went public a few months ago, just literally a month ago, I think, or I can't remember the date, Tempus. I don't know if you're tracking them. Tempus is an AI company. It is Tempus.ai, but it focuses on the pharmaceutical industry. It has all kinds of pharmaceutical use cases and healthcare use cases. And it doesn't look like a language model based solution. It's an older company, obviously. It's already, in many, many $100 million in revenue. And so not all use cases are language LLM based use cases. There's also machine learning applied to big data and
no. Everything, including, for example, this RPA company I mentioned. I mean, they obviously use in their models. So you have integrations to, in models of Salesforce interactions, SAP, et cetera, very complex tools, very complex solutions being integrated into, very complex flows being integrated into. Having said that, that integration is your models, your purview, and you have to have the expertise to do that. But when you want to then summarize everything and generate some things, you could use some of these open source or some of these OpenAI kind of tools where it's not open source, but you're paying for it. But the payment terms have been coming down and so radically that I don't think that is the issue as much as you have to have a corpus of data and corpus of models that are custom to you and differentiate you against the nearest other company that's come behind you. If it's just using open source data and it's the flow, there will be 10 people who will understand your tool in 6 months after you launch and will be chasing you.
What is the state of the union on the enterprise buyer side that you're encountering in your portfolio?
So I think, it was very interesting. The fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter, and because we have all these AI applications, I could see enterprises getting a little skirmish about buying all the large model driven solutions because of fear that either hallucinate all of the things that I discussed about coming into play. I think that has shifted by the second quarter. because all of the companies in the Fortune 500 have made a decision that we must in. I mean, it's like the companies which claim they are now. Everybody's an AI company now, right? Just like you said about Tempest, they were 5 years ago. They were a pharmaceutical software company. Yes, they have incorporated AI into it. EDA companies are claiming that. Everybody's claiming that. So every Fortune 500 has decided to open up the purse and spend some money in this space. So it's money specifically allocated for projects that use AI now. I mean, that's clearly, if you are a chief, a CTO, CIO of all these companies, if you can't talk the lingo and you can't actually start taking the money and making some contributions into your products with it, you're seen as too old school. So most of them are making that transition. So money has opened up. It hasn't opened up into a flood, but I suspect that'll happen towards the fourth quarter of this year and beyond, because everybody wants to be the cool. I'm using LLMs to do X, Y, Z. You're going to hear every old school company now having an AI element of a component into its product, basically.
And is what's happening right now where the money is opening up, is it more going into the services companies that are implementing certain AI workflows, or they're actually buying AI products from the startups?
So service companies are working with a lot of startups much earlier because they will be the first one to get impacted, frankly speaking. If you are a service company which has been providing services in, say, using automation anywhere or using SAP, et cetera, 80% of your flows are going to get automated via what is incoming in tools. So gone are the days where you could start a service company, have 50,000 people in India, and you're charging by the number of hours, right? Because customers are going to see efficiency coming together, and that will radically alter the service industry. Service industry is going to get a lot more automated, and the top service companies have all realized this, have all started spending faster, and is working with pretty much every application company that I have. Either they're trying to invest, they're trying to work with them. And it's great to see that because they know that they need to make that automation layer be part of their story, be part of their culture. Some of them will take time to pivot because going away from an hourly inefficient flow versus an hourly efficient solution-based pricing model is a cultural shift that needs to happen in the service industry, and it will happen. But having said that, it's also happening in places like healthcare, like this hospital company, et cetera, where grudgingly hospitals, et cetera, are realizing the changes that it can bring about to their operating procedures. It's grudgingly because they typically, are taught to treat data so as a bias, as a religious thing that you just can't go around. That they get those restrictions have to be part of the tools that is provided by everybody, every good company providing to the healthcare, but they need to check it, and that will be like, who will be the first one to buy these tools is an important question for many hospitals. I don't want to be the first one. I want somebody else to be the first one. So you're going to take a lot longer in some of those industries where caution will reign rampant.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you seeing the startups, the AI startups, also starting to do services work? I have seen several instances where
Yeah,
they have AI capability, but they're actually going to market with large projects where they provide product and also do the services. Well, they kind of go as a solution.
It is a good way to enter the market because you end up, going in and so, for example, the tax company that I mentioned, they have actually got a lot of people who are providing services for the entire small, medium businesses to do taxes. It's not necessarily the long-term plan, but it gave us the ability to go. We actually acquired a couple of companies that brought in the technology, that brought in the relationship with the customers and added to it our technology to improve the margins and productivity. Now we can go and sell to service providers and to everybody and show what it means to use our tool. But it's better than waiting for service providers and others to actually help you. By the way, this is nothing new also. When I did Magma, as you mentioned, in 2001 or 2000, I think we had a service arm which went and did 2, 3 very large chips of that time. Because if I have to wait for somebody else to get going, I am just going to sit there. So I can't do that. I just had to get a bunch of services and get going. But creating the tool in that context to understand that that may not be my long-term plan. I'm doing it as a means to get my tool out of the market and to create my tools and get the flow all captured.
Well, and the analogy that you just gave of chip design, the expertise is finite, right? It's not like, ever in the world have there been, millions of chip designers, high-end chip designers who could do whatever on the fly. And right now, AI is in that state, like high-end AI expertise is not as ubiquitous. And inside Fortune 500 companies, this expertise is not randomly available. So as that expertise develops and expands, there will be more possibilities. But also in the meantime, the startups are getting to learn by actually doing solving the problems. They're also learning about what other functionality you need to bring into the product. So it's a win-win across the board.
It's basically, what does it take to get your great idea into market, right? I mean, at all costs, get in and get the features done. Just make sure that when you do that, that it's the tool that you're selling and not the expertise as a carved service. Remember, I mean, 10 years from now or 15 years, I don't know what the amount of time that it's going to take. We're going to have AI as knowledge for most people. All of these models getting served, etc., improves, and at the English level we can operate. It's to me, the change of what is going to happen is the computer science, which was a kind of a few people in the world. I don't know how many numbers are there, are the experts. It kind of will move from that to everybody being able to contribute to a certain degree. And that's a very good thing to happen, but it will take 10, 15 years. And you as a startup don't have that 10, 15 years to get the ball moving. You got 1 year, 2 years, and you got to be in the leader, establishing your footprint by the time the entire market community is behind this new transition.
Well, we are in a very fast-paced innovation cycle mode right now. In the next, in the rest of this decade and the next decade, things are going to move really fast. So I'll actually end this segment with my last question is, how are you viewing the evolution of general AI and super intelligence and all that, and how does that inform your investment thesis in vertical AI? And is super intelligence going to make vertical AI unnecessary? How do you parse this question?
Yeah, so I think things like AGI, super intelligence, words like that are dreams of the AI community, and it's things that will work. I don't think we are anywhere near that. At the end of the system, people have to just look at it and say, hey, if the patterns of things have been seen before, yep, we are going to reach a point where the system can do a rinse and repeat of that. But having to say an AGI of the model and kind of making intelligent decisions and cognitive decisions beyond what is today obvious in the data and obvious in the model itself, is going to take a lot of time. It's going to take if the transition to the current state is going to take 10 years, 15 years, an AGI, and there could be an AGI in some specific localized area where every aspect of it can be trained. And so much money has gone into the training to do that, and so much of the systems can be engineered such that the inference of the data needed to make adjustments can be done. But I don't think everything in life is that easy to be done. So that's, in my view, for the next generation. I don't think I'm going to be around the 25, 30-year mark more. So either that is for the next generation to carry on and do the work. I think it's great, and it's a great pioneering work that needs to be done. But this is one step where we if carried through well by startups, they could end up in great positions over the next few years.
My take on general AI is that it doesn't really matter, because there is, at the moment, the opportunity in front of us in vertical AI and, vertical general AI, let's say, the workflows, the APIs, all the integration and kind of real automation in the context of a particular problem domain is so big, and so the productivity that it can achieve is so huge that at the moment, at least, that is really the opportunity.
Yeah, so making every human a superhuman. Right? I mean, and in that specific domain or whatever it is, and that is bound to happen. We are all going to become able to get summarized knowledge of what happens. Like this podcast, somebody could generate a 3-line summary out of the system. That's great. I mean, I don't know what it'll look like, but it certainly is great that it's going to get down to that level. And as you know, over the period of this transformation to cell phones, humanity has lost the ability to read long things. Right? They need it in snippets that are shorter and shorter, and all this summarization at a higher level and summarization of the core content, etc., is going to make us all. I'm not so sure about our social relationships that end up from all of these things, but clearly it's going to change the way we have been operating to being very quick and get to the data and make the solutions very, very quickly, basically.
Well, this is not necessarily a good thing. That's the fact that we cannot do difficult things. We're in evolution, we're losing capacity for rigor. This is not a good thing.
No, I agree with you completely on that, right? I mean, it's the same things that has happened in cell phone, right? When 2000, early 2000s, when cell phone came in, people did not, when I'm not cell phone, but the smartphones came in, we didn't anticipate the impact. Now there's a lot more impact in universities, etc., where people are not mingling as much with each other. The suicide rates are higher.
Social skills have gone down the drain. That's a very bad thing.
And we're going to have similar impact here because our ability to go down and learn is going to get reduced further and further in this business.
Well, yes, this is a longer conversation. I'm not going to go there at the moment.
Yes.
Because we have to work with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But fascinating conversation, very topical, and we will continue the conversation in a few months.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for coming, Rajeev. Are you staying for the pitches?
No, I have another one another call in about 15 minutes, so I'm just going to wrap.
No problem. Thank you for coming and sharing your perspective.